legalizefreedom.com. Why are we here? Where do we come from? Where are we going? From the nature of reality to the future of humanity. Listen without limits. Unchain your brain. Change your thinking. Change your life. legalizefreedom.com.
Greetings and welcome once again to legalizefreedom.com. I'm your host Greg Moffat, and my guest today is Christopher Dunn, who joins us to discuss his book, Giza, the Tesla Connection, Acoustical Science and the Harvesting of Clean Energy. Sharing extensive new evidence and cutting-edge research that the Great Pyramid at Giza was an energy harvesting machine, Christopher Dunn details how the ancient Egyptians might have generated clean power for their civilization, and reveals how the pyramid builders and the inventor Nikola Tesla drew from the same universal knowledge. Dunn reveals how the pyramids in Egypt served to stimulate the release and collection of electrons in the Earth's crust by harmonizing seismic energy while also attenuating the accumulating stresses. Drawing on research into the phenomenon known as earthquake lights, the author shows how the pyramid builders were inspired by this phenomenon and learned to stress igneous rocks in order to harvest the resulting electron flow. Dunn also analyzes the results of extensive acoustic testing and measurements at sacred sites, and shows how the pyramids were tuned to the Earth's frequency. While the pyramid's sophisticated energy harvesting abilities are now in disarray and disuse, some remnants of their technologies are still there, waiting to be rediscovered and provide our civilization with an abundance of non-polluting power. Hello and welcome, Chris, and thank you so much for joining us today on legalizefreedom.com.
Well, thank you, Greg. It's nice to be here.
Chris, today we're talking about your latest book. It's entitled Giza, the Tesla Connection, Acoustical Science and the Harvesting of Clean Energy. Before we jump into that, just for listeners who maybe don't know, just give them a little potted bio, a little bit of information about your background and your work.
Well, yes, I'm originally from Manchester, England, and I served an apprenticeship there, and as a journeyman lathe turner, I got a job in America, so I emigrated in 1969, and I've lived in the Midwest since then. So my path in the States went from working on the shop floor, working with my hands, understanding the function of machines, the application of precision, the creation of precision, verification, and things like that, into engineering. Then I managed a company in Indianapolis. It was a laser job shop that used high-powered lasers for processing aircraft materials. So I've worked pretty much in the aircraft industry since I came to the United States, and retired in 2013. So I've been retired now for just over 10 years. Along the way, I've written 3 books. My first book was in 1998, published in 1998. It was The Giza Power Plant, Technologies of Ancient Egypt. And in 2010, Lost Technologies of Ancient Egypt, and then the current book, Giza, the Tesla Connection. So it's been quite a path that I've been through. A lot of struggles and and challenges, but certainly very, very rewarding. And of course those rewards were really, I think, having people come into my life who have helped me immensely and have become extremely valuable friends and associates, and including my current wife, who has been extremely helpful. And so, it's like no man is an island. We don't get to where we arrive without the significant help from others. And I have to give credit to my associates and friends who have helped me along the way.
So you explained your part of your working life there in industry. So you weren't like a professional author who was, firing out book after book. There's been long periods of time between each of your books. So, but since the last one, or even the time period from the first two and the current one, things have moved on in terms of research and whatnot, and your insight and your interpretation and how you view these things. So, what would you say are some of the major developments, how the situation's moved on since the publication of the last book?
Well, the publication of the last book, the Lost Technologies of Ancient Egypt, that seems to have had a significant impact on researchers in this space, particularly the Egyptians. And that's very heartwarming for me, because my intention when I wrote Lost Technologies was to appeal to Egyptian engineers to follow my path and look at the artifacts that I identified in Lost Technologies and do their own measurements, because looking at it from a crass man and an engineer, the artifacts that I presented in Lost Technologies were the tools to create them do not exist in the archaeological record. And so there is definitely a different story to be told about the level of technology that the ancient Egyptians had. And the artifacts have the evidence that to actually prove that. And so right now it has grown to such an extent that now the Egyptians are openly discussing lost technologies of ancient Egypt. They're discussing the artifacts that I present, and also talking about my new book, the Tesla connection. And so it seems that I had no idea when I started down this path what the impact of my work would be eventually. Well, of course, one always hopes when they start down a path and they develop a passion for something, that other people will share that passion. And but when my first book was published, I got a lot of resistance, and there was a lot of pushback. It's a very controversial kind of material in that if it is actually seen for what it is, it would rewrite history. And of course, there's a great reluctance to accept new ideas that would necessitate the rewriting of history. So that's where we are now, is that the Egyptians will, I think, take it over. And that has been my mantra all along, that if the history of Egypt has to be rewritten, it should be written by the Egyptians themselves, not outsiders. And I think the politics in the country and the people who are involved in this give me hope that will eventually happen.
Well, it's entirely appropriate that should happen, in terms of if the history does have to be, reassessed, even rewritten, even sounds a bit Orwellian, but that it's appropriate it should be by the people of, whatever nation, because I think that a lot of resistance, I mean, there's all sorts of reasons for resistance within Egyptology, but and archaeology
Yeah.
in general, but it has been the sort of outsiders, because it's been the kind of the stomping ground of outsiders, hasn't it? Egyptology from the start, it was created by outsiders as a pseudoscientific field. And as far as the your angle, you've approached looking at the pyramids and other sites, and what the remains are there. I mean, what I was of a generation that grew up being first taught about ancient Egypt and Roman Greece, but specifically Egypt in this case, being told that the pyramids were tombs, the bodies of
Right.
pharaohs were laid in there. But it never made sense to me because of the extreme size of some of these structures, the shafts, the chambers, the obvious design and complexity. It made zero sense whatsoever. So, and also the idea that these all had to be sacred sites, necessarily. They might have been sacred, but what I was looking at, in the way that this probably struck you, it was some kind of technology. This had a function. It did something. It's not just decorative. It's not just ceremonial. And I felt very much, and it'll do very much the same way about megaliths, throughout the world, but particularly in Britain and Europe. Some of these sites sacred, or sacred and other functions as well. But I felt that we're looking at some form of technology here, just with a different basis to what we're used to. So I think that when you couple that with other interesting properties of some of these sites, and megalithic sites, for example, and electromagnetism, and all the other anomalous stuff around, in our case here, the pyramids, that don't make any sense in connection with them just being a tomb or somehow having a ceremonial function, it strongly points to something else. And of course, that's not a new idea at all. You've been one of the pioneers in this. And it's just interesting how much things have moved on since then. And I feel that when I was reading your latest book, and coupling that with other reading I continue to do around all of this, I thought it does feel like resistance is slackening a bit, because alternative ideas, the canon of ideas that you've been building up, is getting to the point where it starts to look absurd to say this is a tomb, for example.
Yeah.
And as more of these sites have been explored as well, because some of the pyramids at Giza, for example, the bigger ones, it's amazing how much of them remain unexplored in terms of their inner workings.
Well, there's still a lot to be gathered, even in the Great Pyramid. There are still, I think, there's still evidence to be collected, and that has been continuing very, very slowly. I mean, even since the Giza power plant was published. I mean, when that was published, there had been no exploration behind Ganton Briggs door, so we didn't know about that. So we didn't know about a lot of like the new void that has been discovered through muography, and all of these things are important. Every piece of evidence that we come up with is discovered will actually it could either negate everything that I've written or reinforce it. So that is basically the way of science, is that you put out a hypothesis or a theory, and then any information that comes in, another data set, you have to reevaluate the theory based on the new information. And so that should be for any theorists or discipline, and it seems that the tomb theory has been fairly entrenched for hundreds of years, and they're not willing to reevaluate it. And so it's kind of like a true skeptic, such as Rene Descartes, his Meditations on Doubt. He challenges a person to doubt themselves, or it's like things that can be questioned must be rejected. It's kind of like, if any part of your theory is questionable or cannot be falsified with objective evidence, then it must be rejected, or at least held back as an idea rather than a truth or a fact. So, but the skeptics, they direct their skepticism outside of themselves. They never look at their beliefs that they hold with any skepticism. Only new ideas that are introduced.
Well, when I've read about ideas about the pyramids, for example, and other ancient sites, all sorts of different functions, but the ones where they talked about it having some kind of energy generation or focusing of energy or whatever it happens to be, one source of major resistance has been tied in with the idea that humans couldn't do this. So then it flips over into ancient aliens. And so it all then becomes, incredible and easily debunked to say, whoa, well, you're saying that, it had to be an off-Earth influence for all this. And that's kind of denigrating what our ancient ancestors would have been capable of. I think we live in an era where there's kind of a myth of linear progress in an upward arc. And, people of thousands of years ago or tens of thousands of years ago, whatever, couldn't have been capable of these amazing feats. Certainly nothing that we couldn't replicate. But go ahead.
Okay. No, sorry. Finish your thought.
No, I'm just stringing thoughts together. So if you want to cut in there, go ahead.
No, I think the whole thing, the whole thing about the ancient aliens is that's kind of a very complex dynamic and cultural issue for me, because I have presented on ancient aliens, and they know that I do not fall back to giving credit to ancient aliens for the work in Egypt or other places around the world. But when I was invited to present, the first time I rejected the idea, and then they came back, and I made a decision that I talked to a lot of different groups of people with all different ideas, ideologies, even religions, and and so I wasn't going to, if somebody asked me to speak on a matter, if I was free to do that and able to do it, then I wasn't going to question what their beliefs were in terms of, how my work was going to be presented, or within what framework is going to be presented. Because any time that you're dealing with the media, and you're not in the editing room, then you have no control over essentially what is presented. So, and at first I was kind of concerned, but the number of people that I've talked to over the years who have seen my work on ancient aliens, they've always claimed that they appreciated it. And they did not, paint me with the ancient alien theorist brush, even if the Prometheus Entertainment tried to do it. But I must say too that all the people that I have talked with associated with that particular show are absolutely delightful people. They're very nice people, and I have I would not level any criticism against any of them. They particularly the directors and producers and things like that. They've always been very respectful. They've always asked me for written permission whenever they use my images, which is more than I can say for some of my detractors who use and abuse my images all the time. So they have some integrity, I think. But just saying, well, we can't do this today, so aliens must have done it in the past. That is not my point of view at all. And really, in terms of scientific thinking, it's a bit lazy in that it's like a catch-all, right? And then it's another aspect to that, and I say this, gently and with respect, but a lot of times the people who say that things cannot be done today are not qualified to make that judgment because you don't know what modern engineers are capable of doing, and so a lot of misinformation is put out there. It's kind of like, well, I can't do this, so nobody else can, which is a little arrogant in a way. I always say, well, as far as a lot of the work that has been done by the Egyptians in the pyramids, the temples, it's like the statues, particularly some of the granite artifacts that are manufactured to a high level of precision. I never say that it cannot be done today. Some of that work, if it was given to me to do, I would probably, or if I was asked to quote on it, I'd probably have to pass on it because of my own personal limitations. But I wouldn't put it past other more qualified engineers with greater resources to be able to accomplish it. So that's pretty much my point of view on that.
Well, in terms of what's achievable and what isn't, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's certainly one aspect of this, and that's resources and ability. Having the tools and the intelligence to do the job. The know-how, and then there's
Right.
the quote unquote the cost of it. So
Right.
you'll hear things like, let's take an example everybody can resonate with. Your local town or city council say that they cannot do they cannot build a new school, or they cannot build a new piece of road because they can't afford it. But
Right.
that's separate. The question really is, do you have the materials and the manpower and the machinery to do it? In which case you can build the school, and in most cases all of that, the know-how, the machinery, the materials are available, but there's something else in the way. So what you're saying there, when you said if you were asked to quote on it, on a piece of work, say to replicate something ancient, you'd be saying, oh, well, in a dollar cost, this is going to be X, Y, and Z, but that's separate from the question of physically, could this be done? If you see what I mean. So I think,
right. I mean, you heard of the boxes in the Serapeum, right?
Yeah, because you've got the big section. I'd heard of them anyway, but you've got the big section on that in your book.
Yeah. So, the thing with those is that there is I did go out into the community to get quotes on actually creating one. And I got a response from a company, I think it was in Minnesota, to actually quote on creating one. They at least responded and said, well, we don't have the equipment to create this out of one piece. What we would do is we would build it in 5 pieces and then ship it to the site and then bolt it together. So they're talking about those very, very precise boxes in the bedrock tunnels at the Serapeum. And so that's one aspect of that entire installation is actually going to number one, the quarries and quarrying the stone, and then to the manufacturers who are going to do the shaping of the stone and then the final finishing of the stone. Now, just because this granite surface plate manufacturer in Minnesota did not have the means to create those, doesn't mean that they could not be created by modern engineers and craftspeople. I mean, you put that job within NASA, and say, hey, it's a government contract, and you say we need you to create these 70-ton boxes with a 28-ton lid on them, and the insides have to be finished to a high level of precision. And they would say, they would quote it. They could make it. I mean, it would be doable. It's kind of like the Manhattan Project, right? You throw enough money at it and enough talent at it, I wouldn't put it past us to be able to create it. And really, I mean, when you look at it geometrically, and it's a very simple shape. They're not complex curves at all. You just have flat surfaces, and so there's nothing really that complex about it. They're just very, very large, very, very heavy, and they have finishes on the insides of them that are quite remarkable. Not perfect in terms of tolerance or precision, but within a tolerance that makes you certainly makes you stand back and ask the question, well, how did they make these? Because you would not be able to make one of those by hand. And they also point to a whole range of instruments that you would need to assure that the metrology of the pieces is accurate. So you would need metrology instruments and things like that in order to create them and to appear and measure as they do now.
Yeah, well, we'll get to the question of machinery and machining again shortly. I just want to say a word about the idea of the pyramids, or say other ancient sites and megalithic sites as somehow either focusing energy or generating energy or whatever it happens to be, or amplifying it. I always thought, even when I was a boy, but particularly later in life when sources of energy, there's the oil crisis, and we find ourselves now to people talking about energy sources all the time, and going green and all the renewables versus fossil fuels, everything else. But it seemed to me that everything was energy. It might sound a bit metaphysical, but there it is. And the Earth itself was, just the amount of energy that's contained within the Earth's core and with it, beneath the crust, and electromagnetism, all around the Earth, and you have manifestations of Earth energy all the time. You mentioned in the book earthquake lights, and the northern lights, and whether it's light energy or electromagnetic or it's kinetic. It just seems that the whole Earth is alive in terms of energy. Then to say nothing of solar energy, that coming from off planet. And I always thought to myself, having no science background or no real ability to comment on this, but at an early age, I was thinking, surely we're surrounded everywhere we look, beneath us, around us, above us. It's all energy. Surely we can't want for light and heat or whatever it happens to be. And this plays into the idea then of earlier societies having a kind of an understanding of this and be able to harness it in a way that we are kind of struggling to do with wind turbines and solar panels and wave energy, etc., etc.
There are many different ways to gather electricity. I mean, right now, I think coal is probably a really big player in the energy industry. And I write in the book, the coal consumed in 2021 for the production of electricity would create a pyramid 76 times the size of the Great Pyramid in Egypt. Can you imagine that? 76 times the size of the Great Pyramid. So, we know how to extract rock from the earth. And if you want to build a pyramid, it makes sense to me that if you can build a pyramid and draw energy through it from the Earth's crust, the Earth's lithosphere, then you would kind of eliminate all the intermediary steps that we now have to go through.
That concludes part 1 of our interview. Part 2 will be available soon in the subscribers area at legalizefreedom.com.
legalizefreedom.com